Hi, I'm Leanne Jackson, Senior Law Editor at Forbes, and today I'm joined by Glenn Donat. He is a partner at Clifford Chance and a former federal prosecutor. He specializes in white-collar crime, and he has done government investigations when he was with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia. He also was the former defense attorney, one of the defense attorneys for President Clinton during his impeachment trial with the Kenneth Starr investigation a number of years ago. Thank you so much for joining me, Glenn.
My pleasure, Leanne. Great to be with you.
And today we're going to talk about, of course, the former President Trump's trial that's been ongoing. I think we're on day 10, if I'm not incorrect.
Wow.
What's been, is it day 10? Am I correct with that? As far as I know?
They all blur together. That sounds right to me, man.
I was going to say it's all running together. People have the count going, but I believe it's day 10. Today is Thursday, day 10 of the trial. And what's been going on today has been Stormy Daniels' attorney has been on the stand. Keith Davidson has been giving a lot of testimony about how he negotiated the hush money, the described hush money payments for not just Stormy Daniels, but also for Karen McDougal. Can you talk a little bit about what both the prosecution and the defense are trying to demonstrate or trying to show or impeach regarding this witness?
Yeah, happy to, Leanne. I think that as with previous witnesses, what the government is trying to do is to corroborate Michael Cohen. Everything is sort of leading up to that climactic testimony from Michael Cohen. And so Keith Davidson was a key actor in this narrative. He was the negotiator for his client, Stormy Daniels, and his counterpart was Michael Cohen. And so he can corroborate a lot of things that Michael Cohen is expected to tell the jury in terms of how he was acting on behalf of Donald Trump and ultimately arranging a payment for the benefit of the election, the campaign. So that's really what the government is doing. They're telling a story, an entertaining story, but they're really trying to build out as much corroboration around Michael Cohen as they can. I think what they're trying to do is establish Michael Cohen as being an unlikable character. They've done that with prior witnesses, and certainly Keith Davidson has corroborated that point, an unhelpful point for the government. They're also trying to demonstrate, I think, that Mr. Davidson's testimony or his recollection might not be perfect, and they're trying to poke some holes in his recollection. And thirdly, they're trying to establish the possibility that Michael Cohen might have been freelancing, acting on his own to try to help Mr. Trump in order to curry favor with him. I think they got out testimony that Mr. Davidson believed that Michael Cohen hoped to be Attorney General or some senior lawyer in the Trump administration, and therefore perhaps he was doing all of this without Mr. Trump's knowledge in order to give him a gift, to do something helpful so he would be benefited later on, even if Trump was unaware of it. So I think those are the two narratives, and I think both sides have been able to score some points so far.
They're also trying to smear Keith Davidson a little bit. And what is the purpose of painting him as sort of a serial extortionist and someone who's a shakedown artist? They mentioned Charlie Sheen, they mentioned Hulk Hogan, and other cases involving sex tapes that he may have gone to these individuals, to high-profile famous individuals, maybe in the past also some publications to try to get money for clients. How is this helpful or not relevant in either way? Or what's the purpose of painting him in this way?
Yeah, I don't know that it's a great tactic. I think, Leanne, there's two points there. One is just to show that this whole side between David Pecker and Keith Davidson, and it's a very unseemly, seedy business. That people come forward, they make salacious claims, they get paid off for them, and that Trump is sort of a victim of this, like a lot of celebrities are. There's this sort of underbelly of remoras that are feeding off of celebrities, and so it's to try to as unsympathetic as Donald Trump usually is, to try to make him a little bit more sympathetic. I think secondarily, it's trying to show that that Trump might have had reasons other than the election to try to buy these people off. These were harmful stories to his reputation, to his relationship with his wife and his family, that there were other there are other reasons to give in to these kinds of extortionate demands that might not have just been about the upcoming election. I don't think it's a terrific argument, and I don't think it sort of holds together given the timing, but I think that's the idea that his lawyers are trying to follow through on.
And the lawyers, one of their arguments, which is similar to that, is that this is a standard operating procedure. Emile Bo, I might not be pronouncing that correctly, but Trump's one of his defense attorneys was saying that this is what happens. Killing stories is something that is a stock in trade. This is standard operating procedure for magazines like this. That David Pecker, this 50% of the stories that he looked at were that he would buy them and not publish them. This sort of catch and kill scheme. But at the same time, they're trying to bring forward witnesses like Keith Davidson to say, but it was my understanding that Trump was the puppet master behind all of this. And it was my understanding from what David Pecker might say, my understanding was that former President Trump was the one behind this to pay the money to kill this story. So definitely trying to tie all of this. The key is to tie up all of it to Trump. How successful do you think that is when witnesses are saying, it's my understanding this is happening? This is what the text, the implication. How strong is that? Are those arguments?
I think they're pretty strong. I think Pecker certainly connected Trump to the McDougal payments. He dealt with Trump directly. He knew Trump for years. He had a personal relationship with him, and so I think Trump and his lawyers will not be able to run away from Pecker's narrative. I think with Davidson, I think he testified today, he never met Mr. Trump. He only dealt with Michael Cohen. And so there's a little bit of room there to say, again, Cohen may well have been freelancing and negotiating this stormy deal without Trump's knowledge. The problem is that there's a buzzsaw that they're going to run into in a couple of days when Trump's checks to Michael Cohen for reimbursement are written in his own hand from the Oval Office, showing that he full well knew after the fact, at least, that the payments were made. And so I don't know how it helps them right now to bob and weave around whether Davidson met Trump. Certainly at the end, I think there's no problem in establishing Trump knew about the payments and reimbursed Cohen for them. Maybe they'll argue he didn't know what he was reimbursing him for, but that's going to be a hard argument.
Well, the argument is this was just I was paying my personal attorney for personal services. Fixer does not have, has sort of a negative implication as to what are you fixing, but at the same time, he also was reportedly handling legal matters for Trump. But is that also a tricky argument when the numbers don't add up, when the record and receipts don't add up?
I think it's a very tricky argument. Trump is famously cheap with lawyers and stiffs them all the time. He wrote a series of checks. I think it was a little bit above the 130,000, but not much. It lined up pretty closely with the amounts paid. And I think Cohen had a recording about his discussion with Trump about the payments. And I think, as I recall, when Trump was confronted with the facts on when he was on Air Force One or otherwise, he didn't deny knowing about them. And so I think it's be very hard for them to argue that Trump didn't know what he was paying for. That runs against everyone's understanding of Donald Trump and his checkbook. So that may be part of the grab bag series of arguments, throw it against the fridge and see what sticks that the lawyers try. But I don't think it's a particularly persuasive line of argument.
Well, the prosecution does seem to be slowly building a case, showing the evidence, demonstrating that there are a lot of threads tying all of this and understanding and knowledge by Trump to pay and knowing exactly what was happening. What about the fact that Michael Cohen may have credibility issues? All of this is building and leading back to Michael Cohen. He is the star witness. His name has been mentioned in every aspect of this case, from opening arguments to every single witness, cross-examination, direct. What do we expect might happen? And this is clearly a buildup to the biggest witness that the prosecution has to offer in this case.
Yeah, no question about it. Michael Cohen is the key witness, and any defense lawyer, and certainly Mr. Trump's defense lawyers, will come at him, with a sledgehammer and try to destroy his credibility. That's inevitable. And I think they have much to work with. Cohen has admitted to lying, I think, to Congress and to the press and in court filings, and so he is a damaged witness. On the other hand, he has been corroborated by witnesses in this case, and so that's part of what the government has done so far with Pecker and Davidson and others. And secondarily, I don't think, I don't think there's that much that Cohen is going to say that we're going to have to take his word for. We see the checks. We know that Cohen went to jail. He took responsibility for what happened, and we know that Trump himself was an unnamed co-conspirator in that case, the federal case for which Cohen pleaded guilty and went to jail. And so, I think the key issues, there's really only two key issues. A, was Trump aware of the payments? Again, very hard for him to argue that he wasn't. And then B, were they for a campaign or election purpose? I think that, that there may, obviously they will try to hit Cohen very hard on that, but I think the timing speaks for itself. And the fact that that Trump, disguised the checks for reasons that would have nothing to do with his family, really. So I don't think Cohen's credibility at the end of the day is going to be the determining factor. I think it's a documents case and a timing case more than what Michael Cohen's truth telling has to do with it.
And as you mentioned, there is a wide range of what he could be ultimately potentially convicted with, and which could range in the possibility of probation to 4 years in prison. What's the likelihood, considering a little bit of, well, obviously it's up to the jury, but there's been some hesitance by Judge Merchan in terms of some of his rulings. Initially, it took a while for him to go to rule on this gag order. But do we think that there's a possibility that a former president could get jail time?
I think there's always that possibility in any criminal case, Leanne, but I think it's a very, very low possibility. I think first of all, it's my understanding that this criminal statute in New York is rarely used. It's rarely used under these circumstances, and it's even rare that defendants go to jail for violations of this business records crime, even when it's escalated to a felony. So I think the comparators will suggest that jail time is not warranted. I think when you add on top of that the fact that you're talking about an ex-president and the putative Republican nominee for this upcoming election, coupled with the logistical difficulties of putting him in a New York State prison with the Secret Service, all of that I think makes it very, very unlikely to imagine that he would ever be sentenced to jail. Could happen. I know he's there's no love lost right now between Trump and Judge Merchan, but I would find it close to impossible to believe he could get sentenced to jail, at least on these facts.
Well, I just want to pivot a little bit and ask about your background, your experience, extensive experience in white-collar criminal defense, and this idea of the gag order. It did take the judge a little while to make a determination. He found, I think it was 9 counts. He violated the gag order 9 to Trump. Former President Trump violated the gag order 9 times, $1,000 for each violation. There's another hearing, I believe, today on additional violations by Trump of this gag order. In fact,
Right.
well, after this ruling by the judge on Tuesday, the initial ruling on the gag order, the violations, Trump was at a rally and I believe called him a crooked judge. So this is sort of it's a continuing pattern that's gone on for a long time, including, I believe today, even he might have said something about E. Jean Carroll. He'd already been found in violation and defamed her. Is there any way to A, control this situation in a criminal court by President Trump specifically, former President Trump specifically, and then B, what happens normally when these sorts of violations take place?
Those are both excellent questions, Leanne. I'll take them in reverse order. There's nothing normal about this situation. Normally, when a defendant violates conditions of release, let alone a gag order, they're stepped back. They're held in jail until the trial is concluded. It is not normal for serial violations of court orders, judges' orders to occur with no consequences. I've had plenty of cases when I was a prosecutor where defendants were released on bond and were stepped back either pre or during trial because they violated judges' orders. So the fact that Trump has gotten away with this level of intransigence to date is without any precedent that I'm aware of. In terms of what to do, it's a really, really hard issue. Before Judge Merchan, Judge Kaplan struggled with it, Judge Engoron struggled with it. And Trump sort of perceives in a feral, intuitive way that judges can't control them. You know, he is the Republican nominee. He is a former president, and he knows he's not really. There's no chance he's going to get stepped back and held in jail. And he knows that even if that were to happen, it would play to his benefit. He would then be a martyr. He would be hugely sympathetic. He'd be able to fundraise, you know, even more than he has off of his mugshot, things like that. So I believe Judge Kaplan even made reference to that would be the best thing to happen to Trump. So in some ways, Judge Bertrand would be playing in his hands by remanding him into custody. So what can they do? They can fine him and little else, unfortunately. It's a hole in our system. He should not be allowed to get away but with violating judicial orders, you know, and he's trying to thread the needle right now on attacking the judge and you know, and sort of people not named in the four corners of the gag order, but you know, he continues to get away with it, and he continues to make a mockery of the judge's orders, and it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it was interesting. I believe his attorneys were asking the judge if he could preview what Trump might want to say next. And the judge is like, you should advise your client to really just stay away from doing this. But again, there's no way for the attorneys have proven unable to sort of control his behavior. And, you know, they raise constitutional issues, First Amendment. But as you mentioned, it's easy for him to get away for things because of who he is, compared to regular defendants in these situations.
Yeah, and because he you know, he in some ways, hard to imagine he'd really love being in jail. I mean, nobody that I know of who spent time there loves that, but I think he loves the idea of being a martyr and raising money off that. That's something that he understands would play very well with his committed, you know, followers, and the judges know that too. And so there's this sort of game of chicken going on there.
Yeah, it's a fine line as to how to deal with this, and it's all been fascinating viewing as well. So I really appreciate you giving your analysis, your very informed and astute analysis of what's going on in this case, and for joining me this afternoon.
My pleasure, Lan.